All right. Good evening. Welcome to UPARS Los Angeles. My name is Steve Murillo. I am the director for UPARS LA. This is October 15th, 2019. We are very fortunate to have a very special guest with us tonight. His name is Ron Morehead. Ron Morehead is best known for the Sierra Sounds. He's a researcher, an author, and a producer. He's been known for decades for his worldwide research into the Bigfoot Sasquatch phenomenon. The Sierra Sounds are the only Bigfoot recordings that have been, scientifically studied, time-tested, and accredited as being genuine. Ron has documented his personal interactions with these beings and produced his story on a CD, which he has here, as well as his book, Voices in the Wilderness. Very few researchers of his caliber are brave enough to publicly consider the hundreds of reports that include the spooky action at a distance, Einstein. In his new book, The Quantum Bigfoot, Ron goes above and beyond, combining decades of experience and tireless hours of research into the realm of quantum physics as it could pertain to Bigfoot and Sasquatch. Also, he thinks there could be an alien component to this mystery. Besides being a keynote speaker at many conventions, he has been featured on countless radio stations such as Coast to Coast, BBC TV, and documentaries such as The Learning Channel. Would you guys put your hands together for Ron Morehead?
Thank you, Steve. That's humbling. Well, I got something for you tonight. It's called Bigfoot Sounds, and you're going to hear some strange things, and if anybody can tell me what these things are saying, I'd like to know it. We just know that they do have language, but I'm going to get into my program. Well, that's one of the sounds we encountered up there when I was interacting with them. I'm going to get into the science we have behind them, the studies that's been done on these sounds, and show the validity of them. Anyway, it's more than just a Bigfoot story, I think, and I want to get into that. That's kind of important, I think. Well, how many here have seen a Bigfoot?
Oh, maybe. Seen it.
One or two hands. How many have heard of them? All right. I mean, just think they heard them. If you didn't see what was making the noise, you're really not real sure. But anyway, get into, are they flesh and blood? Well, they have to be flesh and blood because they leave footprints, they vocalize, they eat, they poop, they do everything we do, they procreate. However, my question is, could there be more we should understand about them? And I do believe there is. I've encountered them over the years up there at the High Sierra Camp between Yosemite and Tahoe is what I tell people. And they're more than just a biological ape out there running around. That's what most researchers are looking for. That's what I was looking for when I first started encountering them. What kind of a creature is this out there? Anyway, I'm going to show you just what it takes to get into that camp. And nobody's up there fooling us. We're assured of that. But the recordings you're going to hear were captured at different times, but in the same camp. And I was featured with David Pilates. I heard him mention he's going to be here in December. And he's featured to me in one of these episodes of his 411, The Missing. How many have seen that? Saw that? Seen it? Saw it? Have saw it? I've seen it. So this is what it takes to get to the camp. This is an excerpt from the movie 411.
And just so people can get some idea, we're not that far outside of Yosemite.
We're not far at all. No. I tell people we're between Yosemite and Tahoe, and that's where we are. If you leave at 6,000 feet elevation, you hike into close to 10,000 feet before you start dropping back into up and down. The whole topography up here changes every year. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what log's going to cross the trail that you have to work your way around to get here. There's really no good trails to get here. And if you don't know where it's at, you'll never find it. It's just one of those places. Well, that's the trip in. That's what it takes. A lot of people think, well, they just pull up some dirt road and pull out a six-pack and record these sounds. That's not the way it happened. Kind of an imposing area. I've had a few broken ribs just getting in and out of that trail over the years. And like I say, this was made last year. David Pillai is the first guy I've ever allowed to go in there and film and document the camp. And that's what he did. Anyway, this is where we did it. That's how we got things in and out with mules. And that's the shelter. I call that an aggressive sound. That was one of the first sounds we started hearing up there when we first encountered them in 1971. And we were inside the little shelter you're looking at there, and we closed that door right there to the right of that opening. And these things would come around the shelter at night, and they'd take our food, and they would start mouthing off like this. So we wasn't sure if they were there to eat us, or to carry us away, or what they were doing, or why they did it. We still don't know, unless it's so I could talk to you tonight about it. But at this camp, this is the sound first. Some very unusual things happened up there, and I didn't talk about that for years, the woo stuff, because you won't get invited to speak anymore if you talking about that stuff. But I'm glad you guys are here because you understand, don't you? Anyway, that's Al Berry on the right of that screen. That's me. I took him in there in 1972, and he was the investigative reporter that we had invited. We wrote a letter to Ivan Sanderson in 1971, the winter of 71, because you can't get in there in the wintertime. It's a snow load at 8,400 feet is just too much. So we have to wait till spring, but he came down and interviewed us each in 1971, the winter of 71. So we took him up there. Unbeknownst to us, he was looking for a hoax. But so was Ivan Sanderson. The 23-page letter that Warren Johnson, leader of our group, wrote to Ivan Sanderson, explaining in detail what was going on up there, he just couldn't buy it. And so he sent it to a guy named Peter Byrne. Anybody ever heard of Peter Byrne? Goodness. Peter Byrne's a pretty renowned researcher. He's 95 years old and still walks the mountains with camera traps. Anyway, Peter got a hold of Alan Berry and asked him to come down and interview us, see if there's anything to it. But Peter also thought it was probably a hoax. And so did Alan. He was in there looking for a hoax. We didn't know that at the time. We thought he was just a friendly guy. But no one's fool. He's 6'4", big guy. He officer in Vietnam, and he had a master's degree in science, so he wasn't going to be, he was looking around for who was fooling who up there, looking around for camera traps, anything that would indicate a source of what was doing this besides just the big tracks they left and the big sounds they allowed us to record. Anybody still know what they're saying? Okay, thank you. Alan contacted the Synthetics Research in New York, first of all, to try to get their input. They're the ones that analyzed the Nixon tape. How many here remember Nixon? Okay. How many here is not going to raise your hand no matter what I say? Okay. Anyway, he got a hold of them, and that's what they said. The sounds were spontaneous, taken at the time of recording, so there was no 60-cycle hum, which would have indicated pre-recording or re-recording. They were too powerful to be human-made, but because of the expense that he was going to have to come up with for them to do a full-blown study, they recommended that he find a university someplace that could could do this. But he did write a book about it in 1976. His whole report to the syntax research is in the back of that book. And who or whatever. The guy's always interrupting me. Has a voice pitch range that is considerably more flexible than that of Homo sapiens. It goes much lower and much higher. That's Nancy Logan, a human sound expert, one of only 10 in this state of California at the time. There was a court-certified interpreter in several languages, and she had perfect pitch. She listened to the sounds and gave me a 3-page report on them, and that's the core of what she was saying. That is a track in the snow right there, by the way. See the toes? Yeah. They also message each other with rocks and pounding sounds, which that was recorded tonight when my friend Bill and I, we were packing supplies in, just the two of us were in camp, and you can hear rocks over here, then answering over here. They do that also with whoops, and I think they do all this before they start interacting with you, because I think they want to see what you're going to do, if you're going to come out shooting at them or what you're going to do. Which we all carry guns, by the way. It's a hunting camp. And, anyway, this is Dr. Curlin's, he did a study on these sounds for a year. And inside that box, I got a pointer here someplace. See if I can point. Oh, it works. That box there is the average human range that I'm talking right now. Those little icons you see around that box is this little sound bit you're fixing to hear. And I want you to notice the icon of the little circle, the 0, it says Muitel. And at the end of this sound sequence, you'll hear that sound, and it sounds very human-like. That's because it's in the human range, too. Actually, we had a scientist listen to this one time, and she kicked it out right away. She said, well, I hear something human in there. It can't be them. Academia's made up their mind what these things, the ones that want to believe it. It's got to fall within their box, their range, or they're not going to accept it. Did you hear that? Wait till. You want to hear it again? I'm one of those guys. I'll play it again. And without knowing Dr. Curlin's data, Dr. Benson at the Texas A&M listened to this, and he corroborated Dr. Curlin's report that it represented an animal about 8.5 foot tall. So, and the only time we got glimpses of these things, because we were trying to trick them, trying to get a camera shot of them. It's really not that easy. Anybody out there trying to get a camera picture of one of these things, they're always blurry. Do you notice that? Maybe because it's just a blurry person. I don't know. Anyway, Dr. Curlin's full report's in this Man Like Monsters on Trial. And it was a big step for Alan Berry, because he finally solicited Dr. Curlin to do this. And it's hard to get academia to take this subject matter seriously. It really is, because they want to laugh at it and put it in the Loch Ness Monster category. This is Scott Nelson. In 2008, he approached me. He heard our sounds on the BFRO network, and he thought he heard something sound like a language. He's a cryptolinguist, and he's vetted by a chief knowledge officer in California here, Defense Language Institute of Foreign Languages. He's a 2-time graduate of that, and he come out here and interviewed me, interviewed Alan Berry, and listened to the context. We gave him the originals, and he went back and studied them and said there is a language within there. Now, what is language by the human definition of language? It's not like dolphins talking or whales talking or birds talking. It's language like I'm talking now, except it's much more rapid. And I'll show you what, I threw that in there. I think that one had asthma. So. But anyway, this is a whistle exchange.
Don't be like that.
That was Warren Johnson you heard there, a little bit of a human voice. He was trying to coach this thing to come out. And we getting kind of bold then. We realized they weren't going to eat us. That was a concern because you don't know what you're dealing with. You just don't know what these things are going to do. And this was in the 70s, early 70s, so you got to kind of keep your guard up and wonder just what it's all about. Whatever, it's pretty unique, whatever it was. And what is it that makes a language by the human definition of language? This is important. The first one you've heard before, it's going to be just a display, and but what it takes is it takes a morphine stream of words, which is a sapient sentence of words, 10, 12 words that make a cognizant sentence. That's what we do, and that's what nothing else can do. It's of a primate, human primate like us, except these things can. Now, that was not language, that was a display. And again, you don't know what they're arguing about out there or what they're beating their chest on. This is language. Well, there was two of them there, and Nancy Logan, the human sound expert, had listened to these, and she said it was a male and a female arguing over something. And just to let you know, she said the female won. Anyway, only humans are supposed to have the vocal tract capable of language. No other primate has that. This is established in 1968. That's a hyoid bone which is attached to the tongue, which creates the nerves up into the brain, which allows us to communicate through language like I'm doing right now, I hope, if you guys are understanding me. But these things have that, and that kind of interesting. Now, this is 3 years after the first contact. We start going into this camp. By the way, you see our sagittal crest up there? See those little, I got to point the hats. I think they thought we were their little primate brothers or something, those coned heads we had that kept our heads warm at night. But listen to this. This is an interaction sequence I put on here to, this happened in 1974.
Right there, just see.
That's not I saw one. That's how long it took me to be able to see one. These things are so fast, they're so elusive, and they don't want to be seen. And when you do see them, it's an accident generally, or unless they want you to see them. But what does that mean? It means if sapience is attributed to humans only, what would that mean in the world of Bigfootology? I think that's a good question. Researching, that's what I do. An effective researcher doesn't selectively find reports that fit his or her ideas, does not discredit others, keeps an open mind, and listens. And you wonder why? Because none of us actually know. So we don't put them in a predetermined box. I don't think all these beings are the same, and I'll tell you why as I go further. That'll be in my, it's about 4 hours from now. That's a joke. I'm not going to stay here that long. Here's some facts. Well, we don't know what that one was slapping. I don't know if it was his feet, his legs, or a rock. But that's a slapping, rhythmic type thing they do. But anyway, these prints that we cast up there, these prints, you can see where they're, I have to tell you all that. This is Al Berry's boot, the one on the top right. He's like I say, wore, I think, a 12-size boot. That's the cast that he made. There's a 6-toed in the bottom right, and that was not made at our camp, but it was made near our camp. Given to me by a Native American. Little Bear was his name. He cast 4 of them around this edge of this lake where he does a spiritual meditation, and the 2 rights and 2 left foot. All of them were 6 toes, figures. I thought that was kind of fun. What causes that? Could be crossbreeding, I don't know. I've explored into Canada. This was 1996 with Peter Byrne and Alan Berry. I went into Toba Inlet. Everybody heard the Albert Ostman story? Anybody heard that? A few hands here. He got kidnapped supposedly by a Bigfoot up in Toba Inlet in British Columbia. Got carried away in a sleeping bag one night, and he was held for 6 days in this big bowl. He said it was about 10 acres, and he was watching the family of these things. There was a male that carried him there, a female, and 2 adolescents, a male and female adolescent. He didn't know what they were going to do with him. This was 1924, by the way. And he was interviewed in 1953, I think it was, by John Green. And John, I talked to him about it because I researched Toba Inlet. I actually flew in there. We've been there. Some of the story didn't fit, but he was in such detail about coming out. And you see where Toba Inlet is, and he was supposedly rode up in there and walked out after 6 days after he got this big male Sasquatch sick with his snuff. You got to read the story. It's funny. Well, not really. If you're there, I guess it wasn't funny. But anyway, here's another little Canadian thing I did. 2016, setting up camera traps with a researcher named Todd Neese. We stayed on a boat for 6 days going to different islands and archipelagos up there above Vancouver Island. And thermal imaging, we watched where the cameras were because low tide. We was trying to see if we could catch one because I've been seen swimming between these islands up there. So we was trying to capture something, didn't. Grizzly bear, got a lot of pictures of grizzly bears. Anyway, that's the Lovelock Caves, bottom left. I've been there 4 times. The one on the right is a skull that came out of there about 40 years ago. It was on display in the Winnemucca Museum. And who knows about the Lovelock Caves? Goodness gracious, not too many. Well, supposedly these cannibalistic giants were eating the Paiutes. They were eating them, hunting them down and eating them. Red-haired giants. And all the Paiutes got together and drove them into this cave, which was a lot bigger then. And set fire to it and shot them as they came out. So that's the story. And Sarah Winnemucca, her book, has got the whole story in it. But that's a skull right there on the right. You notice it's got double-rolled teeth? That's a sign of a giant, and that was a giant skull. But they don't show that anymore. They've taken all those artifacts away. And so the Winnemucca Museum and the BLM absolutely denies there was any giants there, but the Paiutes swear up and down there were giants there. So, Native American mythology. It says they live in two worlds. What does that mean? What does that mean? Spirit beings who can disappear. Well, you got to wonder, is there core truth to this, or do we ignore these stories? They've been here a lot longer than us, the Native Americans, and they got these legends that go way back about these things. Yet, classical science, current academia is not exploring any of that at all. And I do. I think it's very unique. It's very good to do. So I do that. Yeah. I was in Moscow, Russia with Dr. Meldrum, and this is John Vandernagle. He's another doctor from Canada. And that's in the middle is the Dmitry Bainov. We spoke at the Darwin Museum there, and they took us into Siberia and took us to this cave, which you see at the bottom left. That cave's supposedly wild man's been seen there. They call it the Wild Man. And you could drive a truck in there. It's huge. We did find some tracks in there, but because they took us there, you can't really say for sure that it wasn't a setup. You just don't know. If you find it yourself, that's what I did. Well, I'm the one that found the track, but I'm not sure it was, I'm just not sure. So we couldn't verify it one way or the other, but that's how we got around it. I can see that. This is in Nepal with Peter Byrne, and that's the way I got around there on that elephant. That's crazy. 6 days on an elephant when I got caught between two rhinos that were breeding. You don't want to do that, ever. I'd never been on a runaway elephant before, but it's hard to hang on to that little basket there. But I was sitting there taking a picture of this male rhino. Off from here, that wall right there. All of a sudden, this other one starts screaming over here. We didn't even know it was there. And that's the breeding sound that was going on. And boy, that elephant just took off. I tried to get some pictures of that, but I was more concerned about staying on that elephant. Anyway, that was fun. Also been in Yucatan, all over the Mayan ruins down there. And I heard a Mayan language down there, which when he told me he was a Mayan descendant, and they still speak Mayan in his village, they try to keep that alive, even though the Spaniards made them take Mexican names and all that. So, but they spoke Mayan, and when I heard him speaking the Mayan language, it was very similar to some of the chatter I've heard up at our camp, the Bigfoot chatter. I found out that the Mayans actually migrated from Mongolia. And Mongolia, you know where that is. But the way they knew that is because they got this, the babies will have this little mark at the base of their spine. And they did a DNA, and sure enough, they came from Mongolia. The Mayans did. I thought that was kind of interesting. Because a lot of the sounds we record up there sounds very Asian type. That's me with L.A. Missoula and Brian Forster in Bolivia. And I was down there basically a couple different times with two different scientists with L.A. and Brian. And my reason for going there was to see if this elongated skull stuff could have anything to do with the Sasquatches up here. They report a lot of times with a sagittal crest, a pointed head. And I found out that the Incas have stories about warring with these Aztecs and the Mayans in Central America. Then you find the Mayans have stories about warring with giants in the north. So that puts it right back up to the Lovelock Caves where I was. So, and plus we got findings we found in the Sierras, the minaret skull. Anybody ever heard of the minaret skull? Boy, I got to break you guys in. That was found by a doctor in the minarets of Sierra Nevada mountains. Huge skull, human-like. He sent it off to UCLA, and that's where it got lost, quote unquote lost. So anyway, there has been a hominin. Oh, I got to tell you, these things aren't human. Those skulls. they don't have a sagittal suture. You know, we have two parietals, one on each side of our head, with a suture in between, a little soft spot babies have. You don't want to poke that. But these things don't have, it's one parietal. And in the back of their skull, there's two little pinholes. And that's, you know, they say, well, they were cradleboard. Well, no, these were not cradleboard. They actually found one mummified, a female who was pregnant, and her fetus had elongated skull. So, and plus we uncovered a mummy, a baby that was mummified, and it had an elongated skull without a sagittal suture. That's just to let you know that something's going on here in the past that isn't talked about a whole lot. And this is an olden time Pandu where you get on the train to go to Machu Picchu. But see that the structure up there on the top left where my face is? That's pretty unique. And you can see all these things in Cusco and all around this area. But something with advanced technology has been here. These rocks and boulders, and a lot of these little rocks down here at the bottom were put in by Spaniards to shore it up. So I got questions to ponder here. Oh, see all that, let's see if I can get this pointer working. If I don't fall over, turn around. Oh well, forget it. All those rocks back there where those little spots down there are people. And that whole area there, got some well over 100-ton boulders. And they were quarried probably 19 miles from where this is. And this is like 13,000 feet elevation. And the bottom right there, you can get a close-up of that right there. You can see how those rocks are put together. There's no mortar. They're put together like a jigsaw puzzle. You don't know why, you don't know how they did it, but something with advanced technology did it. So I got to ask some of these questions. Could these giants be more than just an undiscovered primate? The giants, talking about the Sierra giants. Could they have evolved more than humans, living outside of our domesticated society? Could they have adapted and become immune to problems that other hominids in the past succumbed to? You know, a lot of Native Americans have spiritual guides. Bigfoot is a spiritual guide. It's because animals seem to make it through catastrophes where we don't do so well. And that's a matter of fact. So, how do we begin to understand these beings? This has been a quest of mine for pretty much a big part of my life. I started this when I was 29. I'm 77 now. And researching everything, I don't discard anybody's account now. I just listen, and pretty soon you put the dots together and it makes a picture. But I think it's important to study history. It's important to understand classical science, how it works, and quantum science, how it works. Also the native mythology, evolution. And is there government intervention into this thing? Alien connection, is there one of those? So let's consider. You know, Stalin was trying to do this, and then Hitler picked up the wand from him, trying to make a super warrior. And, you know, about 50 of those scientists, when we won the war, came over here. And I've heard through the grapevine that there's geneticists have been working with the government doing DNA manipulation and trying to create just what we're talking about right here. Don't know. It's all stories right now, but it's stories I've heard from undercover. Is there any truth to it? I don't know. Consider Egyptian mythology. You know, what is that? Thoth? Where's these legends come from, these stories? Was there any truth to them? Demigods? Fallen angels in the Bible, they call them? Over eons of time, history has been lost. What was once known as truth has become myth, and many a myth has been true as truth. I believe there's a core of truth to Greek mythology and ancient texts. I think there's an alien component to this. We all believe in UFOs. Who does not believe in UFOs now? Ha ha ha. Okay. Is there any, did this really happen? Do you think this? This is a biblical story. Anyway, research in ancient texts. Did sapiens actually evolve in humans, or was it given by advanced technology? Ancient text tells us that aliens crossbred with humans. Now, that's biblical also. It's also in Greek mythology. And because some of these beings have an alien component. Let's talk about classical science. It's Newtonian physics, which was started in 1687, and most researchers follow this method exclusively. And I got to tell you what it means. I mean, Newtonian physics has taught us, we all learned this in grade school, to depend on our five senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. However, it's based on the claim that all reality is material or physical, measurable, and predictable. That's just not true. It's only true in our 3D environment here. Classical science reached beyond those parameters and include human attributes such as intuition, cognizance, things that can't be explained through evolution. If these giants have the same mitochondrial DNA as humans, understanding more about us could allow us to understand them better. Have we as humans evolved to our full potential? Let me think we've got all there is. That's it. You didn't raise your hand. Good. Open-minded. I like that. Anyway, researching Darwin's evolution, many humans' unseen attributes are not explained in Darwin's theory. It's just not complete. There's a group of scientists now that found out that the protein has no way of mutating to cause what Darwin says is natural selection. And I just found that out recently. But anyway, how does it explain intuition or psychic phenomena? How does it explain telekinesis, telepathy, consciousness, clairvoyance, feelings? Anybody had a deja vu? We've all had deja vus, haven't we? It's where you just think something, it's happened before. It's like all of a sudden, anyway, where's the evidence that these factors actually evolved in us? The evidence is in quantum science, not in classical science. Let me talk about a deja vu. You know why a deja vu, how they work? All of a sudden, you spend the whole night dreaming about something fantastic, and in this dream, someone's knocking on your door, and someone really is knocking on your door. Or little things like that happen. It's happened to me several times. Probably happened to everybody here, but the reason that can happen is because quantum physics says time as we perceive it does not exist. Everything's in the now. That's hard to get your head around. So I don't want to throw you for a loop here, but if you guys have not gotten into quantum physics at all, it's not that hard to just get a simple little 101 book and start reading the basics to it. You realize that's how everything in the universe works. Lloyd Pye, we mentioned him a few minutes ago, he came up with this intervention theory, and something changed the DNA of a primate. So this is how evolution says we should have came through the channels here, but that big guy there, I don't think this little guy came from that. But something's changed the DNA to give everything, or these two beings here, the attribute for a very advanced vocal mechanism. Here's a good one. You don't see everything there is going on. We know that. We only see within certain frequency of light. There's all these other frequencies out there. And this is a blow up here of what we can actually see with our visible eye. You also heard people, see things with the camera and take a picture. There's something there that wasn't there when they was looking, but there's something there in the picture. This happens time after time in Joe Hauser's vortex up in the Montana vortex. If you ever get a chance to get up in that way, it's close to Glacier National Park, but he's got a vortex up there. He bought it because of the anomalies going on there, but there's a magnetic field there. And he's actually got pictures of people who stick their arm in this thing and it's disappeared. You don't see it. You can see this stuff real time up there. It's an amazing place, so never get a chance to see that. This gives you an idea of, you can go out in the dark and you won't see anything, but take a picture with the camera and you might see an orb. This happens up at Joe's place all the time, there's orbs. That's because camera lens will pick up light frequency that our eyes don't pick up. And just to give you an idea that stuff like that happens. Oh, this kind of woke me up. That's Scott Nelson there, the little hat on. That's my daughter on the right, my granddaughter on the left. And this is a trackway that disappeared. And up till then, I'd kind of, well, people say the tracks just stopped. And that's hard to swallow because how does that happen? Well, according to Al Berry, you better keep science with all this stuff. So I started looking into quantum physics, and sure, it can happen because matter and energy can interchange. And if these things have, you can see Scott Nelson's stride right there at the bottom left, how deep those tracks were made. He couldn't even make a track in there. You can see the trackway going up between them. And they just stopped. And that morning, my daughter saw the thing. And I looked in the trees, I looked for a rock, I looked for anywhere where that thing could have jumped, how it could have got away. And it was not to be found. But there is a quantum answer to how this happens. It's called density. Once you matter, which we are, we're matter, we're all energy at our most finite level. You guys know that, don't you? Everything's energy. The most finite level, it's energy. If that matter can transfer to energy, it wouldn't have a density. And I think somehow these things have got that attribute to change from matter to energy and back. And they may do it, I perceive that through maybe their advanced vocal mechanism to create the right frequency. I don't know, but it's my theory. The other mysteries happened up there at the camp, but this kind of opens you up to mysteries and how they could be. And it throws people into the paranormal or the woo or something like that. But really, we're all acquainted with aliens. We know they're here now. And, well, how far advanced are they? How far more advanced do we need to become? But who knows who Glenn Beck was? Ape Canyon, about Mount St. Helens. Oh my gosh. What will I do? He supposedly shot one, him and some miners. This is 1924 again. They took a group of deputies in there to retrieve the body and they couldn't find it. He swears them down, he hit it point blank. They were miners, but till he died, he said they were paranormal, something unusual about these things. Because 2 years before these things started attacking their cabin there, throwing rocks into their cabin, they was following a trackway in the snow and it just abruptly stopped. And they knew what was doing it, but they didn't know how it stopped. So he thought they're paranormal. And I guess if it's out of what you think is normal, it would be paranormal. But what gives them their unusual attributes? I put this together. I think it's kind of funny. See, disappear. Actually, I saw Bigfoot and Elvis alive, both in 1974. Truly, I did. Yeah. But not at the same time. Those were whoops. They also whoop back and forth. And those whoops sometimes have different intonations. I think they mean something to another one. I don't think they mean nothing to us, but they're singling back and forth with whooping sounds. I got a lot of those on my second CD back there. Research and alien intervention. Now we're getting to the meat of it all. Finally acknowledged by our government. Could some Bigfoot beings have an alien component? How many think they might be? Is there a connection? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nobody on this side? Oh, we got a split group here. Now, I got a question. What would an advanced beings want anything to do with us? Good question, isn't it? What do they want to deal with us for if they're so advanced? Well, we do. Everybody's seen this film now, right?
Right.
Okay. Well, anyway, the truth is out there. They do exist. Somebody's flying those things. So why would they want to have something to do with the Earth? I think the Earth is a jewel of the solar system with hundreds of different species, precious metals, and minerals. think there's a big effort here to get to gold. Gold's very important. And could the aliens want to experience our three-dimensional density? That's what we are. We're three-dimensional beings living in a three-dimensional environment. Could they want, you ever heard about abductions? I guess L.A. was here talking some time back when L.A. Missoula. Well, he's had, I don't know if he showed you those pictures now of Dr. Laird, I think his name was, who did these operations checking on implants. People that claimed they had been abducted. That was interesting, I thought. He actually filmed that, the operations. But is there a hybridization program? Mining Earth's minerals, we talk about that. How about experimentations? Or could they be here to help us save this planet that we're screwing up? We are messing it up, you know. A little cartoon I threw in there. It's not a movie, but there are a lot of reports of UFOs and these things being seen at the same time, same place. I just interviewed this guy this last summer who saw a UFO daytime, also saw a Bigfoot, same area. He's a hunter, not that far from where our camp is. I mean, probably 15 miles away. So anyway, I think there's an alien connection. But the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. I think that's the stage we're in right now. We're starting to study this stuff and look into it, and we have an open mind. But if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. That's critically important, because everything is energy. Everything is at its most finite level is energy. Actually, Dr. Mitchell, how am I doing on time? Is anybody keeping track of time? Who cares? Does anybody really know what time it is? It takes classical and quantum sciences together to have clear perception. Dr. Edgar Mitchell said that. I love that statement. That's one of my best things I think I have here. You don't put them together, because we do live in this three-dimensional environment, but you can't discard what's really going on outside of it, because it's all something going on. What is the big picture? You have to buy me a couple drinks, let me tell you that one. And quantum science is how everything works. Research in modern science, that's called quantum physics. And that's what Einstein, that came up early 1900s, actually 1800s, when Dr. Planck got a Nobel Prize for quantum physics. But nobody claims to totally understand this science, but it's been established, it works, and we engage with it each day. So, do we ignore it, or do we use it in our research? I challenge these people who think they have to stay with classical science, because there have been too many reports, all of the, too many over the years. I've been interviewing people now for 40 some odd years, and it's just amazing the stories I hear. Energy can't die either. That's a good one. Stephen Hawking says this, and so did Einstein. And if we're all made of energy, it can't die. We just leave this embodiment. And of course, a religion, if you're religious, you'd call that heaven. But quantum science calls it dimensions. There's at least 11 dimensions, they claim, and that's proven mathematically. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. So whatever you think these things are, just keep an open mind. None of us know. Well, one man calls God, another man calls the laws of physics. That's Nikola Tesla. He was a pretty genius guy, you know. You guys know who he was, right? Free energy everywhere. I like that idea, especially if you live in California. But I don't live in California any longer. I'm a native Californian. I live in Washington now. I just paid too many taxes, that's all. Quantum physics and spirituality are the same. I'm saying that because if you look at the writings in ancient texts, and I'm going to go back 2,000 years of this, I won't mention his name, or I'll see a bunch of arms crossed like this. You think I'm religious. I'm not religious. We're all spiritual, whether we like it or not. We have something in us called a spirit that's going to keep going no matter what we do. But anyway, he did what you call miracles. I don't think there's anything such as miracles. I don't believe in miracles. It's the use of quantum physics. If you read what this guy said and what was quoted from him, you guys pretty much know who I'm talking about. He said, you can do what I'm doing. We're not walking on water. I get wet every time I try. I never get a laugh out of that either. But many call the paranormal, the supernatural, a miracle, the woo. I call all these things quantum physics. If you just understand it a little bit, you don't have to be a physicist. I'm not a physicist. But my perspective is this. Really, classical science has restricted itself by its own disciplines. They have a discipline. If you don't stay within those parameters, you get kicked out of the club, the academia club. And so they have to stay with that. Advanced beings from the cosmos have been on this planet and are likely here now. Many desire to be part of our 3D experience. Alien manipulation of DNA into the troglodytes have given some Sasquatch advanced attributes. I say some because, again, they are not all the same, in my opinion. I believe many Bigfoots to be a hybrid, part human, that's mitochondrial DNA only. They likely have 23 pairs of chromosomes. It takes 24 pair for other primates. We are the only ones with 23 pairs that allows you to inbreed, to breed without any problems. And there's a lot of stories like that about these things breeding into indigenous people. Many have crossbred with making them more human-like than others. I call that the dilution factor, because if you keep breeding down into humans, first thing you know, one's more human-like than another. That's why these tracks are different. That's why some of them have different attributes. Some of them can talk, some of them can't. Some just pound away and scream. But they're all out there in the woods hiding somewhere. How do they stay so hidden? A lot of them, not just a few, there's a lot of them. I got my theory on that, but you got to buy me 3 drinks for that one. Using their advanced vocal mechanism, perhaps some of these beings can raise their vibrational frequency high enough to go out of their limited 3D perception. Because what we perceive is very limited. Well, everything's really going. If you could see what's really happening in this room, you might be surprised. But I think they can manipulate energy, enabling them to move between the 3rd and 4th dimensions, densities into the 5th, and that would put them out of our perception. Anyway, quantum physics has determined that there are at least 11 dimensions. Now that's mathematically proven. No physicist can deny it. If you're going to disprove it, you got to disprove it mathematically, and that has not been able to be done in 100 years. So, just thought I'd let you know there's so much more going on than what we can actually see with our eyes. At the most minute level of matter, the subatomic level, everything is energy, vibrating at different frequencies. Find that frequency, and you can change matter. How do you like that statement? You can find the frequency something's on, you can change matter. I just seen a report the other day where it says if they can get a vibrational frequency between 100,000 and 200,000 hertz, it will kill cancer. So they're working on stuff like this. They're realizing that frequency has so much to do with everything.
So from a 100% factual standpoint, we really don't know what's making this language sounds.
That's right. We don't know. One time I heard a big, sound like a huge tuning fork above us, and you couldn't find the source of it. It was just a big sound like that. Sometimes you'd hear a sound out here, and one time we thought our camp was being torn apart by something. We thought the barrels we'd packed in and was being torn up and tossed around, and you look out here when all the commotion and the sound stopped, and there's nothing changed. Now, how do you explain that? You know, one time we was in there, I thought I heard a car door slam out here. Now, come on, we're 8 miles in the wilderness.
So aside from the sounds, you also saw some things in the sky, in the air?
Yeah, lights, yeah, orbs. Other guys that reported orbs when I wasn't here. Me and my friend Bill saw one night was a big blue ball coming down from up here, slowly moving, definitely controlled. It had some type of intelligence about it. And if you were just looking up there, you would think it was the moon, but it was blue. It was moving down. We lost it behind the trees and went over there. So I don't know what to think of that. You don't know what to think about any of this stuff, you know. We were in a tent. It just almost, it wasn't this dark, but this thing, whatever it was, just kind of starts moving across over here behind us. Elongated light, about probably 3 foot long, probably about that big around, and just a rod of light. I tell people when I talk about it, it's like a Star Wars saber. White, glowing, but not bright glowing, just glowing. And it just moved slowly through the trees, definitely controlled, and dissipated over here.
Is it embarrassing to talk about?
No, I don't care. I'm old enough now, nothing bothers me.
What makes you keep coming back?
The mystery that's still here. There's still a mystery that needs to be solved or understood. And I'm here now because you're here. I've been asked multiple times to be brought up here by different people, and I've turned them down basically because I don't want the area. It's such a pristine area still. I don't want it exposed to a bunch of researchers come up here, just inundating the area. So what now? What now? If you think there's a large hairy hominid around, I know there's a lot of them around here, but if you're up in the mountains, if you're in a wilderness area, what do? I got a whole bunch of suggestions. I'm not going to tell them all to you because we have time for that, but do your best to not let fear control you. Fear is your enemy. If you fear something, you're walking backwards. That's easy to say, but that's really important. I think they can sense fear in people. They don't know what you're going to do. I don't know if they knew they might know more about what we were going to do with those guns than what we knew what we'd do, because we didn't think we wanted to shoot at them. We knew we didn't want to shoot at them, but we weren't going to do that unless they came crashing through the shelter at us. So, anyway, try to relax and have fun. Be in the alpha state of awareness. You guys know what that is, alpha state of awareness? We're in the beta state now, where I'm talking to you totally awake. Alpha state's before you drift off, and you're just you're not asleep, but you're not awake. If you can get that relaxed, don't analyze things, don't try to figure things out, don't try to trick these things, by the way. We tried that. Trust me, you can't trick them. They seem like they're a step ahead of you. And we tried so hard to get a picture. Camera traps, all kinds of stuff, but they walk around and we underestimated what we're dealing with in the 70s. And now that I've studied this thing for so many years, I realized we were dealing with something very much more than just an ape out in the woods. And what they were up there, we have yet to know, but I think there's an alien component to them because there's also a human component to them. Apply classical science first to try to understand any unusual events. That means that don't think that every time you hear something you don't understand that it's a Bigfoot. Just try to figure out what else it could possibly be first. Consider inside and outside your third density parameters. Yeah, there you go. Big words. Ego can be your enemy. Don't be tethered by it. We all have an ego that makes us human, but don't let that get in the way of things. It will be their terms and their time. We found out you can't make something happen. I've had people buy these recordings thinking they're going to go out and blast them and draw these things in. Well, they do, but what happens then? They've been bluff charged. I've had a lot of people tell me stories about them. I don't recommend blasting these sounds because you still don't know what they're saying. They might be looking for a mate. You don't know. You don't know? Listen and watch for their signs, and I've got a list of things that their telltale signs, what they'll do. Keep good records. Above all, keep an open mind. Very important. Not so open that your brains fall out. And by the way, they will toy with you. I think they were toying with us a lot up there. They play games with you. They're liable to follow you out along in the tree line somewhere, and you hear these tromp, tromp, tromp. They're liable to call your dog's name when your dog isn't even with you. They're liable to call your name. They can make just about any sound they want to make. I was asked earlier, do you think they have more than 2 vocal cords? We have 2. I think they possibly do. Something gives them an attribute to be able to speak in these. Humans can't mimic this at all. That's been established. I'd like to ask everybody a question.